Nintendo and Warner Bros. Disappointing fans yet again. Meta services causing a big disruption. A big merger is coming to the professional camera industry. HP is taking a risk with a new monthly subscription. Android apps on Windows are hitting the graveyard. And Google's Genie can make games using AI. This and a whole lot more taking over the headlines of the past 7 days. I'm Jason Grewal, and this is The Fresh Wire. Hey everyone, hope you're all doing well. Welcome back to another episode of The Fresh Wire with the one and only Jason Grewal. It's 10:19 p.m., March 8th, 2024. Hope you're all doing well. Really appreciate everyone that tunes right in. I really do respect it deeply. So a whole lot has happened in the past few days. As always, it seems to be either not a whole lot, or a bit of both, but that's much more uncommon than you think. But of course, something very unfortunate has happened. As always, I start out with the sad topics of the week, and two very, very beloved people in the entertainment industry have unfortunately passed away, so I will start with them. The creator of Dragon Ball Z and everything surrounding it, Akira Toriyama, has passed away March 1st due to acute subdural hematoma. He was 68 years old. He's been working on some phenomenal manga and anime for the past 45 years or more. An official statement came out. Two friends and partners of Akira, and it is obviously very, very sad. He was very beloved across the world with everything that he worked on for decades, and this announcement came last night, and he will be deeply missed. Deeply, deeply missed. I watched Dragon Ball Z Kai as a kid, actually, and very, very devastated when I found this out, so rest in peace. Another person that was also beloved for many growing up, Janice Burgess, creator of the Backyardigans, passed away at 72. Two-time Daytime Emmy winner, creating the beloved animated musical series, passed away Saturday last week in Manhattan of breast cancer. A former colleague from Nickelodeon told the New York Times. Backyardigans, I remember deeply growing up. It started around the time I was starting to grow out of it, but still enjoyed it every now and then. It aired on Nick Jr. in the mid-2000s to early 2010s. And yeah, it was absolutely, I loved every episode that I watched, and she will, of course, be deeply missed as well. Rest in peace. Okay, so, like I said, a whole lot has happened, and I mean it. Crazy stuff, not a whole lot of good, but some good. I'll get into it. First off, I do want to talk about the box office. Actually, some pretty big movies battling it out with each other. Kung Fu Panda 4 and Dune Part 2. Both movies I do plan to see. Both movies that I'm very excited to see. I liked the previous Kung Fu Panda films, and I heard this one's actually pretty good. And I don't think this is a spoiler, because this was revealed. Mr. Beast is apparently one of the characters. He voices one of the characters. I don't know how that happened. I really don't. I don't think many know how that happens, especially for a film like Kung Fu Panda 4. To have Mr. Beast be... I don't know. That stuck out to me. But anyway, Dune Part 2 I heard is fantastic, and I do plan to see that. I just need to have the time for that, but I do plan to see that in the near future. Kung Fu Panda 4 is projected to make between $45 to $50 million in its opening weekend. Dune Part 2 is projected to make a little under that for its second weekend. So pretty good stuff. I'm glad films like these are succeeding if they're, liked by critics and audiences. Those are the kinds of films that deserve to be successful. So massive respect to DreamWorks, to Warner Bros. For this and some other thing. A little bit of breaking news, but I'll get to that later. Props to them. But I want to break out of the tradition I normally do, where I do entertainment, technology, gaming, then VR, because this is a huge deal. If you don't know, there are emulators that exist for the Nintendo Switch. Not just emulators to run on the Switch, but emulators to run Switch games on your PC. One of them named Yuzu. Recently, they were sued by Nintendo, and they are now going to cease to exist. The developers behind the emulator have agreed to pay $2.4 million to Nintendo, and they also said that Yuzu is, quote, primarily designed to circumvent and play Nintendo Switch games, unquote. And they have permanently stopped working on the emulator, hosting the emulator, distributing the code, and anything involving anything with the emulator. Unfortunately, this actually also means that Citra, a highly beloved Nintendo 3DS emulator to emulate 3DS games, keeping in mind the internet service for that is shutting down, I think, later this month, if not April. And the eShop has been shut down for a while. You are not able to buy 3DS games, like, officially in any capacity, outside of maybe one or two Pokemon games that are, for some reason, $100 at GameStop. Otherwise, you can't anymore. The online's shutting down. There's no point. But unfortunately, this affected Citra because it looks like it's the same developer. So everything involving Citra has now completely disappeared. The Twitter/X profile is gone, with all the posts being cleared, rather. All the code disappeared. And yeah, so the 3DS emulator is also gone. A very legally written statement where you can really, if you read it yourself, you can do your own research. And it's very clear that this was written by a lawyer, objectively. This is very deeply information that they knew about, that people are always going to pirate games when there's an emulator. And they just said, oh, we're, whoopsies. Because people pirate games with this, it's Jover. So, yeah, this is obviously a big deal. Probably one of the largest emulators to be shut down in a very long time due to a lawsuit. Cease and desist. I mean, you don't see those often, but just straight up Nintendo suing them, because if this went to court, keep in mind, this is, you don't want this to go to court. I'm seeing a lot of people say that the developers behind Yuzu made the right decision, which, to give up $2.4 million, I think they had to know this was the right decision. But because this was settled, this will not set a legal precedent. Because if this went to court, then you would have had a judge say whether or not what is going on here was legal or not. And the problem is, I'm seeing a lot of evidence suggesting that the developers behind the emulator was paywalling a version of the emulator that more supported Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom before the game even launched. Because that game got leaked like 2 weeks early or a week early, and the developers behind the emulator were making, as far as I know, from what I've heard, a version that fixed some of the problems, but they paywalled it behind their Patreon. And you don't want to do that. And of course, that's, yeah. So obviously a big end to Yuzu. Unfortunately, also a big end to the Citra emulator, which is actually crazy because I don't even know if there is another good 3DS emulator. There's another Switch emulator. I don't want to risk anything, so I'm not even going to say it. Again, do your own research. I've heard it's not bad, but of course it was nowhere near as good as Yuzu. So, huge hit to the emulating scene. And if this sets a precedent where others shut down their emulators, then you're gonna. I'm telling you now because I've already seen it online. You're gonna see a lot of people say stuff that I can't tell you that I support because it is fully illegal. A little bit of a plus side, but I really don't want to say there's a plus side to any of it. The Nintendo DS emulator Drastic is now free. A high-quality premium emulator that's been available on mobile devices, including Android, that used to cost $5, is now free for good. However, it does look like the emulator will not be up much longer. The developer wrote on their official Discord, quote, "I want to make it clear that I don't have any kind of financial incentive," unquote. And then Nintendo's move simply, quote, "made the whole process more urgent." So, yeah, obviously a huge deal. And it's not just the Drastic emulator making a drastic move. The developer of the Pizza Boy emulators for Game Boy Advance, Game Boy, and Game Boy Color pulled both his paid and free emulators off the Google Play Store, which is the app store for Android, saying that, quote, "my family comes first," unquote. And a popular Discord server for the Valve Steam Deck has temporarily shut down its entire emulation channel. Also, as far as I know, there's been a big update to this emulator program that you can get for the Steam Deck that simplifies the installation process for all these emulators. And of course, without Yuzu and Citra, you can no longer get those too. But the good news is they are not removing them. They're not removing them. And keep in mind, while Citra and Yuzu are gone, there are still other options for Switch and 3DS emulation. The only problem is, are they next? If they are next, then Nintendo is setting a very big precedent that is going to be groundbreaking in all the wrong ways. And I'll just tell you now, I will not be happy, and a lot of other people will not be happy. So that was the big topic for Nintendo, but Warner Bros., again, they did something good. I'll say it later, but they did something very bad. They are removing a bunch of different games that were published under Adult Swim Games. So Adult Swim Games is owned by Warner Bros. Discovery, and so now several developers of games published under that subsidiary have said that the company has reached out to inform them that their games will soon be removed from digital storefronts on PC and console. So a developer for a game, Fist Puncher, that's available on Steam, or at least used to be now, said, "It saddens me to announce that we received notice from Warner Bros. Discovery, the owners of Adult Swim Games, that Fist Puncher will be retired and removed from Steam in the next 60 days. Other developers with Adult Swim Games said they received a very similar, if not the same message, saying within the next 60 days. Some of the affected developers say that they will republish their games on Steam, but it will lose, of course, a lot of, its history. No more. It will lose all the community pages, achievements, forum discussions, screenshots, and other content in that process by republishing it. Warner Bros. Reportedly could transfer all of these permissions to the developers, but developers say the company is refusing to do so, citing a lack of resources. Developers say that this literally just takes them minutes. One developer said, quote, "I sent them the Steam transfer link, explained that it takes 3 clicks, and they still refuse, claiming it would only be fair to transfer no one's games since they can't do them all. Warner Bros., what the F is wrong with you? That's ridiculous." So a list of 25 Adult Swim game titles will be removed on Steam. So this comes on the heels of just everything that could just go wrong. Bad Girl and Coyote vs. Acme being shelved even though they were nearly finished as a means of cost-cutting and tax write-offs. One developer that's being affected has now made their game freely available on his website, writing that Warner Bros. Would allow the team to republish the game on Steam so long as it removed all references to Adult Swim games, including team members listed in the credits. That's horrible. That's horrible. The person said, "I'm all for games preservation, and this ain't it, Chief." And I completely agree. Completely agree. Meanwhile, other topics in the world of everything the past few days. Epic Games and Apple back at it again because of a huge update coming up where if you are in the European Union, and if you're listening to my podcast, you probably aren't, but if you are, you'll soon be able to have access to third-party app stores, including what Epic Games CEO Tim Sweeney said, one that would allow you to download and install Fortnite, saying online, on I think Twitter/X, that it would have Fortnite and it would be coming later this year for iOS. So people in the European Union would finally get iOS back with Fortnite. The two would reunite. However, Wednesday, Epic shared that Apple had revoked its developer license after the game publisher finally got it back following Fortnite's removal from iOS in 2020. Apple cited criticism from Epic Games CEO Tim Sweeney, who called Apple's EU's Digital Markets Act DMA changes, quote, hot garbage, as the reason for its termination. EU regulators began looking into why Apple banned Epic's developer account shortly after, as well as whether it complied with the accompanying Digital Services Act. So, after all of this, saying they were going to investigate, it looks like they backed down because you don't mess with the European Union. You get billions of dollars in fines, or pounds, or euros, and you keep getting them. It's not like in the U.S., where it's a slap on the wrist and you don't even feel it, and then it never happens again. So Epic Games says that Apple has reversed its decision following an inquiry from the European Commission. In an update on its website, Epic Games says Apple has, quote, committed to the European Commission that they will reinstate our developer account, unquote. The company is now, quote, moving forward as planned to launch the Epic Game Store and bring Fortnite back to iOS in Europe, unquote. There you go. So Fortnite will be coming back to iOS later this year in Europe. Speaking of the EU and Apple, with all those third-party app stores, they'll need to receive updates from time to time. But what if you visit the EU what if you are a European Union citizen and then you go to a country that isn't part of the EU for more than a month? Well, if you do that, you will not be able to update third-party apps installed on your iPhone until you get back. So in an update to its support page Thursday, Apple says you can continue using apps from alternative marketplaces while traveling for long periods, but you'll need to come back to the EU to get the latest version. Wow, that sure sounds like safe and secure, right, Apple? Shortly after the EU's Digital Markets Act, or DMA, went into effect, users noticed an Apple support page stating users would, quote, lose access to some features, unquote, when leaving the EU for short-term travel. So now that policy has been made more specific, carving out a 30-day grace period, which if you're a frequent traveler, is not a whole lot of time. You can still continue to use the apps, you just will not be able to have them updated if you're away for more than a month. By the way, availability update, this is an interesting one. Your device, and this is directly from what seems to be Apple themselves, your device eligibility for alternative app marketplaces is determined using on-device processing with only an indicator of eligibility sent to Apple. To preserve your privacy, Apple does not collect your device's location. Later it says, it pretty much restates what they say, and it's crazy. And keep in mind, this is all part of the big update, iOS 17.4. If you're in the EU and you updated that, you're going to get access to all this, along with being able to choose different defaults. I think a default web browser change is not in yet, but that's coming later this year, I think. Other changes are, all prevalent thanks to the DMA. But very, very disappointing that they're restricting that. I mean, if you're going to implement all this craziness and all these new features for the EU, just do it worldwide. I mean, my goodness. But they don't have to. That's why they're not going to. A big shutdown has been going on, again, by Warner Bros. Discovery, Rooster Teeth. So the people that made RWBY and Red vs. Blue, after 21 years, will be shutting down, laying off 150 employees. Some shows and podcasts are going to be stopped. Warner Bros. Discovery was unsuccessful in trying to sell the company, according to a company memo obtained by Variety, later published on Rooster Teeth's site. The general manager of the company pinned the closure on, quote, challenges facing digital media resulting from fundamental shifts in consumer behavior and monetization across platforms, advertising, and patronage. Very big, devastating thing. They just underwent a rebrand for its 20th anniversary less than a year ago with a new logo. Despite efforts to reduce expenses, they have not been profitable for at least a decade. As of this week's announcement, the subscriber base was close to 60,000, according to Variety. Very, very disappointing. A lot of cost cutting that Warner Bros. Discovery is doing just in the hopes of making money. It probably won't succeed. WBD is still looking to sell certain series backlogs and rights, including RWBY, Red vs. Blue, and Genlock, an animated mecha series backed by actor Michael B. Jordan. They're also looking to offload the company's Roost podcast network. So just hoping that they survive, maybe altogether. Interesting that no one wanted to buy the company as a whole, but maybe at least some of the assets could be saved or something. Not written off as a tax write-off, please. And again, of course, a little more anger coming from WBD. They have now confirmed they will crack down on password sharing for its Mac streaming service starting this year. It follows streaming rivals, including Netflix and soon Disney Plus and Hulu, I think, in the coming days, and banning the sharing of account login information with people outside of the account holder's household. I canceled Max a few months ago. This has no relevance to me, but dang, very, very unfortunate that Netflix had to be so successful in their password crackdown that this is being achieved and will very likely be very successful. Netflix famously launched the password crackdown trend about 2 years ago, bringing the rule changes to U.S. subscribers less than a year ago. Netflix had excused password sharing for years, but in 2022, it lost subscribers for the first time since 2011. At the time, Netflix had 221.64 million subscribers. Its latest count 260 million. So you get a lot of people addicted to Netflix, binge watching whenever they can, seeing something's good. There's got to be something in the millions of titles. No, really? Oh, well, sometimes. And yeah, it was a massive success for them. We'll see if it's a success for Disney Plus and Hulu. Maybe, I don't know. I get Hulu for free thanks to my grandfather mobile plan. And Disney Plus, I've been fine having. We canceled Max because we no longer got the value out of it. But yeah, not going to end well. I don't think it will. What also didn't end well for a Tuesday morning for many people was Facebook, Instagram, and Threads all being down for, I think, more than an hour. A massive Meta outage locking users out of their accounts Tuesday morning. Things did eventually go back up to normal, but from what I saw, and this wasn't something that affected me, but it could have, some people actually were able, as MetaQuest is owned by, of course, Meta, and this problem actually had people signed out of their accounts. Facebook locked users out of their accounts. Instagram users couldn't refresh their feeds. And Threads displayed a message saying, quote, "Sorry, something went wrong. Try again," unquote. WhatsApp, by the way, was not affected and continued to work. I think if that was affected around this time, I would have noticed. But not the other three, at least not at the moment. But from what I've seen, people that were trying to sign into their MetaQuest headset, well, there's a big problem. You have to be signed into it, as far as I know, at all times. So when this sign-out command seemed to have been sent out to Facebook users, they were also sent to Meta users. So if your headset was connected to the internet, you were signed out and you were not able to sign back in. And that's a big problem, because if you're not signed in, you can't use the headset at all. And because it seemed to have sent out this sign-out, it soft bricked every MetaQuest user completely. So that was a huge problem. Luckily, though, it seemed like it happened around 10 a.m. and just past noon, they were beginning to be recovered. And of course, they have since fixed it. It was about 2 to 3 hours, it seems. So also that ends well. Of course, LinkedIn, for a moment, the following day was also down with a significant outage. It showed visitors error messages happened around Wednesday afternoon. And it seemed like it was a problem for more than an hour, if not about an hour. Yeah. So, glad that's over with. Now, a little bit of gaming, and it's going to be a very exciting topic for me. So, two things that I absolutely love is Cowboy Bebop, one of the greatest anime shows ever created, and hating Overwatch. This is a complete opposite of not combining that. Overwatch 2, when they were premiering the trailer for their current season, had a tease at the end for Cowboy Bebop, including playing the famous Tank song. And they have now released a trailer of the official collab, and it is a recreation of the Cowboy Bebop opening. And let me tell you, it's probably one of the coolest Overwatch 2 videos that is hyping something up I've ever seen. Genuinely. So new skins for some characters, unfortunately none that I play. Although Spike Spiegel is Cassidy, maybe I'll just play Cassidy. Unfortunately, I'm certain all these are going to cost actual money. And because I was so excited for the season with all the changes and the Cowboy Bebop collab, all the coins that I've been building up in-game, grinding by accident, I put them on the Battle Pass. So I don't even have coins to buy a skin. Although I think because of how expensive skins are, I still wouldn't have enough. But it's a really cool Moira skin. I mean, this Battle Pass seems to be worth it as long as I grind my butt off. So it seems like not only will there be skins, but there'll be all kinds of Bebop-themed sprays, highlight intros, and emotes. I'm more than positive that Bebop's most iconic moments will have to be memorized. Although maybe some deeper cuts could be a nice thing, especially if they involve the incredible movie that came out in 2001, Knocking on Heaven's Door. Fantastic anime film. If you love Cowboy Bebop, after you see the show, it's definitely something I recommend watching. Just sit back and relax for like 90 minutes, and it's a heck of a ride. It starts March 12th, which is Tuesday, and I will be playing it from Tuesday morning to when I go to work. Probably not, but yeah. So Android apps have actually been playable to a degree on Windows 11. It was called the Windows Subsystem for Android, a feature first released October 2021, so around the time Windows 11 was released, and it allowed Windows PCs to run Android apps alongside native Windows apps. Well, Microsoft has now announced they are pulling support for it. The company says PCs currently running Android apps will still be able to run them, but the feature will be deprecated, and all support will end pretty much a year from now, March 5th, 2025. I don't think I had any installed, so I guess I never will. Microsoft's notice implies the Amazon App Store and all Android apps will disappear from the Microsoft Store between now and next year. Though as of writing this podcast, it's still available to install, but now there is a warning message. So, yeah, I mean, using the Amazon App Store, it was always going to be a bit of a, why in a way, because so many apps are just not on the Amazon App Store. They're on Google Play Store instead. Seems like Android users did figure out how to unofficially sideload the Google Play Store into this. But to that I say, I mean, is it that worth it? There's a lot of like native apps that just exist now for Microsoft Windows and the Microsoft Store. It just didn't make a whole lot of sense. So, I mean, it was never useful enough to appeal to Windows users. Low user interest more than likely explains the decision to axe the feature. Of course, sometimes you gotta just remove features. I mean, I would prefer they don't, but eventually the operating system gets bloated enough that they have to, cut some things. Can't keep making it larger and larger and larger, and it gets massive with features no one uses. Windows Media Player legacy. So, very disappointing, but, I didn't even use it, and I'm a big Android user. Used Android for more than a decade. So, dang. Nikon is acquiring U.S. camera manufacturer Red, making it a subsidiary of Nikon as it attempts to expand into the digital cinema camera market. So Nikon, makes a lot of very nice cameras, is acquiring Red Digital Camera, best known for making great professional cinematography cameras, like the Red 1 4K or the V Raptor X. Exact terms were not disclosed in Nikon's press release, outlining that Red will become a wholly owned subsidiary of the camera company. So it doesn't look like there'll be probably a lot of changes, but, for comparison, Red has been boasting its cameras have been used to film numerous major films and TV shows, including multiple Marvel productions, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, to name a recent one, along with nature documentaries like Planet Earth 2, and TV shows like Squid Game, Mindhunter, Peaky Blinders, and The Queen's Gambit. Red was founded in 2005 and currently has around 220 employees. So it comes, actually, less than a year after Red's lawsuit against Nikon for infringing on its video compression patents was dismissed. Red sued the company in 2022 for allegedly copying its data compression tech in a firmware update for Nikon's Z9 camera. Nikon responded by challenging the legitimacy of Red's patents, and the case was dismissed just under a year ago. If you want to know a little fail, and I remember this, Red attempted to expand into the smartphone market back in 2018 with the release of the Red Hydrogen 1, boasting a holographic display and support for modular add-ons. It was a massive failure and was discontinued a year later. Darn. But I heard it was just really not a good phone that kept getting delayed by a few years and had like a crazy price tag for the hardware, and it was just not worth it. No one bought it, and Red moved on. And they moved on right into Nikon's home. Now, another store that's trying to enter the home of Amazon in a way is Target, launching Target Circle 360, a $100 annual subscription offering free unlimited delivery and rush shipping on online orders. It seems like this is an attempt to compete with what Walmart and Amazon are doing with their monthly and annual subscriptions. This was announced during Target's earnings call Tuesday, rivaling offerings by the two companies I mentioned that axe shipping costs for an annual fee. Target Circle 360 members will receive free 2-day shipping and free same-day delivery on orders $35 and up. That sounds like, a little familiar. Amazon. The plan will debut April 7th and will be priced at half off for a limited time. Really trying to get everyone in and then raise the price. But no, I wouldn't know that, but I would hope they don't do that. This actually isn't the first entry into paid subscriptions for Target, and it actually kind of feels like it's more of a rebranding an upgrade of its current delivery offerings. Shipped, which is owned by Target, already offers free same-day delivery from nearby Target stores for $100 a year. Target.com currently offers free 2-day shipping for online orders, $35 and more, no subscription needed. The new Target Circle 360 plan appears to combine the membership and shipping, but no order minimums. So that's interesting. Target Circle 360 will also include access to the shipped marketplace, which means free delivery from other stores too. Well, you would hope so. You are just never going to be able to compare Amazon to Target one-to-one. So having access to other stores for free delivery is pretty nice. But if it's the means of combining shipped, yeah, I would obviously understand that. By the way, Apple did a bit of a unwrapping with a new device, showing off a new M3-equipped MacBook Air. 13 and 15-inch laptops are, quote from Apple, up to 60% faster, sporting up to 18 hours of battery life. They have started shipping today. 13-inch, $1,100, and as far as I know, this has all the features you expect from the M3 chip, Wi-Fi 6E, which would give faster data download speeds if you support it, a bright display, and a new one for MacBook Airs, support for up to 2 external displays when the laptops are closed. That's right, 2. 2024, and this is a new feature. The M2 version of the laptop will stick around at $1,000. Don't buy it. Do not buy it. M3 has pretty big upgrades, and it's $100 more. Don't buy the M2 version. With this being said, the M1 version, which has been around for a while, quite a few years, no longer is being sold. So, end of an era. It was the MacBook Air that really brought Apple into a new era with their new processors, but what can you do? What can you do? What you shouldn't do is what HP is doing, where they're introducing a rent-a-printer business. So what does that mean? The company debuting a subscription service called the HP All-In plan. It's essentially an extension of HP's Instant Ink, and like that plan, you'll have ink sent to you as you approach empty, but unlike it, your monthly fee also covers the printer itself. Cheapest plan is $6.99. You get 20 pages worth of prints and the current HP Envy model, which I don't think is that expensive. I think when I bought one for college, of course, that feels like 20 years ago, it was like $50-something. Now, it did break after 2 or 3 months, and I didn't even know how to resolve it or who to tell. I was 19 years old, so luckily I didn't need a printer after that time anyway. It was just a nice thing to have. The most expensive membership is $36 a month. That gives you an OfficeJet Pro, which my parents used to have. It worked for several years, so I can trust its reliability, just not the ink use. Along with 700 pages a month. If you need that much, wow, you probably are a small business or a teacher. If you go over your page allotment, HP will add more for $1 per block of 10 to 15 pages. Oddly not specific. Now, this is not a lease-to-own situation where you're paying monthly for, let's say, an Xbox 360 for $100, and you're paying for the Xbox Live Gold, and then after 2 years, it's yours to keep. Famous plan from about a decade ago. So each plan is a 2-year rental. If you decide HP All-In isn't for you after all, you'll have to return the printer and go away. If you cancel after an initial 30-day trial or before 2 years, you'll pay a fee as high as $270, depending on the plan and when you cancel. So, wow. The subscription is based on the idea that printers are frustrating commodities. The company's configurator page mentions bonuses like continuous printer coverage and next business day printer replacement, for instance. So if a firmware upgrade blue screens your printer because your ink cartridge decided to have the wrong DRM, or the DRM just broke and your printer said, I'm not going to just accept this, I'm just going to blow up. Very bad. Of course, some people will probably be okay with this. Keep in mind, because it's part instant ink, that does mean when the printer detects it's low ink, but you still have pages available to utilize. In terms of ink count that you pay monthly for, they send you back ink cartridges. I know this because my parents actually used to need HP Instant Ink. It was for a while actually not a horrible option, especially with an OfficeJet Pro quality printer. HP Instant Ink wasn't a terrible idea for a few bucks a month. So I can attest that it actually wasn't that bad, but you have to use it. There will be some pages that roll over, but if you don't use it enough, then you start getting ripped off because there's only so many pages it'll roll over to, and then you're screwed and you've got a lot of pages of ink. They're just wasting away, but you're paying. So we eventually did cancel it now a while back, and we have since then moved on to a different printer brand. Canon, you better be good. I like your cameras a little bit. So also a little bit of VR stuff. A big software update is releasing, at least in beta, for MetaQuest 2 Pro and 3. And for the first two, it's actually a big deal. Overall, it has a new payment method called Quest Cash. Not a whole lot of info on it, but it looks like something will come out of it soon. But the big update, if you're a MetaQuest 2 and Pro user, they now have a lying down mode. It's experimental, but what it pretty much says is when you turn it on and you find a comfortable and stable position and look up, you can hold the Oculus, or I don't know what you call it now, to recenter your view. And what that I think means is it would actually allow you to reorient yourself laying down, let's say on your bed or a really nice chair. You look up and all of a sudden it's like you're walking around without the need of using your legs. Reportedly, this actually was a feature very hidden a while ago, at least for Quest 3 users. I can't confirm this. And they did eventually remove it in an update. And what sucks is this is actually only for the Quest 2 and Pro. They, as far as I know, didn't give a reason on why to do that. They haven't specified why the Quest 3 doesn't have it. And this is a beta right now in the public test channel as the time I'm recording this. And I have a Quest 3. So I actually was able to get into the beta, which not everyone can. For a while with my Quest 3, I actually wasn't able to because it said the channel was full. Now it's not. So yippee to people that don't want to be on the bleeding edge, but not too bleeding. Of course, there's other creative ways to work around this, in your own ways. Some apps like YouTube, you can adjust it however you like. So, yeah, those are the big stuff. There's also apparently something that they've changed that restricts modding applications that you may have installed through sideloading, which you can do with Android devices. They reportedly have blocked a way to mod the apps and something else involving sideloading apps. Another person showed that the apps that they have sideloaded, they previously weren't able to show up in your taskbar in a way on the Quest 3. As an example, because I've tried this out. Now they do show up as a recent app. So that's a big improvement. That's a big improvement to me. I respect that. Also, if you're a huge fan of video games, there's a big thing that kind of just exploded in terms of multiverses. Multiverses is a game made by Warner Bros. Discovery that released back in, I think, 2022. And I played the heck out of it. With my friends, we played online for a way too long than I'm willing to admit. So that was a great time until Overwatch 2 released, and then my priorities went somewhere. And for a lot of people, it seems like they did for their own reasons, because after its release and its historic, massive release and full of its potential, Season 1 came, still a huge deal. Season 2 came, pretty lackluster, and the hype just died. So they reminded everyone this was an open beta, so we are shutting it down and bringing it back up early 2024. This was their last tweet, June 22nd, saying that online features have been disabled. Well, March 5th, something changed. They, for the first time, tweeted saying, "Taps mic, testing, 1, 2, 3. That's a huge deal. Next day, they did some weird tweet referencing the mic check. And 5 hours ago, they posted that they're coming soon to Happy Meals, which is funny. It's verifiable that they're already in Happy Meals. What I think happened is this was all supposed to happen a few weeks ago, this relaunch, and for some reason they delayed it so badly that Multiverses appeared on the Happy Meals. And that became a huge thing because I think in some international McDonald's, Multiverses was showing up. So, yeah, it was already like, come on, when is this coming? Well, 6 hours ago, Multiverse says, mic check was a resounding success, calling Tony to set Monday morning at 6 a.m. Pacific time. Stay tuned. Tony is, I think, one of the game managers with multiverses, if it's referencing that and not an in-game character. I think there was someone named Tony that had a big involvement. Yeah, the co-founder and game director of Player First Games, the developers of Multiverses. So, yeah, this is a huge deal. I'm very excited. I really liked it up until Overwatch 2 released, and, I want a change of scenery. So, if this really does come back soon, I will play the heck out of it, and yeah, it'll be actually a great time. It was pretty good until I just stopped playing. Just lost my interest. But that would not happen again. I even bought the Battle Pass, actually, for, I think, Season 1. I think it was Season 1. I had Steam credit available, so no big deal. Also, I'll play the heck out of it on Steam Deck. I'll tell you that now. So that's it for the majority of the podcast. But of course, futurology, and I mentioned this in my summary, but this is very, very interesting. It involves generative AI and Google. So what could that possibly be? Well, Google DeepMind, one of the organizations in Google that really look at the future of AI or whatever, made what's called a Genie model, converting images into interactive playable environments that can be easily created, stepped into, and explored. So multiple GIFs were shown off of platform-style games generated from static starting images, including children's sketches or real-world photographs, or even text prompts passed through Image Gen 2. So from the looks of it, it does look like it works to a degree. Now, of course, these are GIFs. They're not, or GIFs. They're not fully impressive. And, of course, there is apparently a big problem with it. The system currently only runs at 1 frame per second, which is at least 20 to 30 times slower than what is necessary, usually considered, to be playable in real time. Yeah, so it definitely looks like it needs a lot of work done, but it kind of looks like it works. It's just obviously not fully correct. But we'll see. We'll see. There's, of course, just don't forget, this is the worst it will ever get. Soon it will work perfectly. And I can't wait to be scared about that. But that'll be it for me this episode of The Fresh Wire. Thank you all for tuning in. I really do appreciate it from the top of my heart yet again. And I keep doing these Friday nights, until I get bored, which will never happen. Unless it does, then it is what it is. But until then, thank you all for listening. Take care of yourselves and have a gosh darn good one. Have a morning, afternoon, a good one. I would hope so. A good morning, afternoon, evening, day or night, wherever you are, however you live. Peace.